All right, so you're selling your home, you got it on the market, you get it under contract, and you're almost to close, and oh, you changed your mind. Is that possible? Stick with me, and we'll go over that.
You better get fired up.
Guys, what's going on? Happy Friday. It's 11 o'clock. We're here every single Friday at 11 o'clock with You've Got Questions, I've Got Answers, where we answer your toughest questions. And this week I was asked, hey, if I'm a seller and I'm under contract with someone, and maybe it's a week before, 3 days before, whatever it is, I decide I just don't want to sell my property anymore. What are my options? Can I back out? So this is really a challenging situation. There's a lot of different answers to it. There's a lot of variables. It really depends on a lot of different things. But I'll tell you, the contract is going to answer your black and white questions. Now, there's a lot of gray. I'm going to go over it as well. But in accordance with the contract, it's going to depend on what contingencies you have available. Traditionally speaking, sellers don't have a lot of contingencies. Once you're under contract, with exceptions, the seller's pretty much committed fully to moving forward. Now, the buyer has a lot of contingencies, right? So if their financing falls through, if the appraisal is short, if they're not happy with the inspection, if somebody dies, right? There's a lot of different contingencies involved that can release a buyer from a contract. But even buyers can get so far along where, hey, they've come up and said, the loan's fully approved, we're good to go, we got clear to close, we're happy with the inspection, our loan looks good, and they change their minds too. So what happens? If there's no contingencies that allow you out, right? If there is a contingency, you just use the contingency in accordance with the contract, and you're good. You can get out, assuming it says you can get out, and then you got to follow the, whatever the rules of the game are in the contract. If there's no contingency, what I have told my clients in the past is, let's go back and talk with the other side and see what's going on. A lot of people believe that whatever your escrow deposit is, boom, it's gone. And while that's true in that scenario, I don't know if I'll give a percentage. I'll just say a lot of times. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. I've seen people say, you know what, I wanted to get out too, so it's not a big deal. Let's just do it. I've seen people say, absolutely not. You've got a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 deposit. I'm keeping it if they want to get out. Now, you can say that as a seller. As a buyer, you'd have to say, I'm giving it up to get out or whatever it is, I'm sorry, as a seller, you don't really have anything to give up. Of course, you're going to give them their deposit back, but you don't have, there's no leverage. As a buyer, you can say, hey, take my deposit. As a seller, there's nothing really to give up. So do you have to leave your house? The short and quick answer is no, but they've got recourse. If the buyer's not happy with just getting their escrow deposit back and leaving, which legally, listen, they've gone through the cost of an inspection. They've gone through the cost of all the gas going around to look at the place. Maybe they got a hotel to stay there for the week because they don't even live there. The flights to get there if they, didn't live there and they have to travel there. You've got the survey, you've got the appraisal, you've got you're in some cash as a buyer, right? So if they don't want to do it, they could say, we're not interested in getting our deposit back. If you don't sell us your home, we're going to sue you for what's called specific performance. Now, specific performance you can find in a lot of different contracts. Basically what it is we are suing you to follow through with, the letter of the law, which is this contract that we've got here. And they could force you to sell your property. Now, I'll tell you, I've sold hundreds of homes. I've had a lot of people threaten specific performance, either because I tell them it's an option or an attorney will tell them it's an option. I've never seen one actually go to court. I either see, well, I'll say this too. I don't know how many people I've had who've said they want to back out, and not for negotiation. They're trying to scare the other side purposes. I'm saying they are legitimate. I want to get out of this deal. I bet you on the buy side, I've probably seen that maybe half a dozen times. On the sell side, I've seen it maybe twice that I can remember. So let's say 8 times. All 8 of those deals fell apart. All of them. None of them changed their mind. None of them. Once they made that decision, it was over. And it didn't matter what consequences you were bringing up. They were willing to lose their escrow deposit as a buyer. As a seller, they were willing to get sued for specific performance. By the way, both sides can sue for specific performance. But even with that known, I've never seen anybody actually take it to court. Has it actually gone to court? Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you ask 1,000 realtors, somebody's gone to court for this. It's just not common. So, you know, if you can work it out, if you can have a discussion and say, and honestly, I find that just being upfront is the best answer, because if you're backing out, now it's one thing if you're changing your mind, especially as a buyer, right? But if you've got like, hey, somebody just found out they had cancer in our family, or my spouse just died and I am still approved, but we were going to buy this together, or, you know, something like that. Most people, not everybody, has compassion for the other side. And, you know, the one who wants to back out is always going to say, man, if they're nice, if they're human, if they have compassion, they're going to let me out. But you got to realize the other side is also in a bind. Because if the seller wants to back out, even for legitimate purposes, let's say one of them has cancer and okay, we're going to stay in the house. Like I said, that buyer has racked up thousands in fees. What if the seller can't afford to pay those fees and reimburse them? Or even if the seller can, what if the buyer was looking for a very specific home that was in a very specific neighborhood next to their kids who had grandkids, right? Well, had kids, and it was their grandkids. And it was the only home in the community that had a pool. And you're not allowed to put pools in that community anymore. Like, I'm making up a really unique situation. But it's just something that either can't be replicated, or it's very challenging to be replicated, or to replicate it would cost considerably more in most situations. You've got to understand that compassion and empathy sometimes has to be seen on both sides. And a lot of times when you're the one with the cancer or the death or whatever it is, the financial issue, you want everybody to see your issue and be empathetic. But both sides have serious concerns. And I don't think it's fair either. This is my opinion. I mean, your ethics and morals may be different than mine. It's not fair to say, well, because my issue is more important than your issue, you know, I win and you've got to let me out, or I win and you've got to buy the home, or whatever it is. You know, financial issues are stressful. Cancer is stressful. Death is stressful. It's all stressful. But if you want to get out, you either have to come to some negotiation, and almost always some sort of money exchange is going to be had, or you risk being sued for specific performance. And again, it's not something I've seen. I've seen it threatened. I've never seen it happen, but it's unlikely, right? But do not ignore the fact that that's a possibility. And if you're in that situation, you're going to want to talk to an attorney to find out, what does specific performance mean? What could I lose? You're not only being forced necessarily to just give up your home as a seller if you get sued and you lose in specific performance. You might also have to pay all of your court and lawyer fees, and you've got to pay all of the buyer's court and lawyer fees. That is tens of thousands, maybe hundreds, but we'll just say tens of thousands of dollars in addition to having to purchase the home, right? That could put you in financial ruin. And even if it's not financial ruin, it's going to be a significant hit. So just be aware of all that. Guys, if you've got future questions for You've Got Questions, I've Got Answers, feel free to put it in the comments, or you can send me a direct DM and we'll absolutely have that on one of our future shows. Again, we're here every single Friday at 11 o'clock. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week.